Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar this afternoon. And you are very welcome to our last webinar under People Care module. Our video today is on health and safety based on the topic of risk management. And risk management is a strategy to improve the health and safety of children and workers. Before maybe we go to the definition of risk management, I would like us to first understand what risk is. And I'll request members to participate in our webinar to talk about what risk is. So what do we think risk is before we manage it?
I think it's
anyone
danger. Is it another word for danger or possible danger?
Yes. Yeah, that is one approach.
And Imi in the chat is saying uncertainty. Becca is saying things that could go wrong.
Okay, I also came up with a few definitions, and one of them that was outstanding is a chance that outcomes will not turn out as planned. I remember a few years ago, I tried to put up a shop as a way of trying to increase on my income. And I didn't look at the risks that would come with the business. And I left it to someone. And within like 6 months, everything I had put up was gone. So I didn't calculate the risk that would come with it. And definitely the outcomes did not come out as I had planned. So could we share some of those examples? I've already shared mine of how I tried to put up a business and it didn't work out as I had planned. So do we have some examples of the risks we've taken as individuals or as an organization that have not turned out to be what we expected?
I'll share one. Before I do that, Vero has said a risk is a situation involving exposure to danger. We took a risk by investing in the farm, and that didn't turn out well. It was. And obviously we hope to recover something from it, but it was a risk that went wrong.
Yes, thank you, Mim, for sharing. And I think when you're investing in the farm, you expected maybe a big harvest, and it didn't come out the way you had planned. So probably at the farm, what risks, now that we want to give it another try, though in a different form, what risks have we considered as we put up another project in that farm? Those are things we are going to look at, but probably you could give us a hint of what risks you've calculated as we even begin another sustainable model of the farm.
I'm going to ask Paul to answer that, because the truth is we haven't done a risk assessment yet. So he can answer that one. We've still got to do the business plan, but hoping that the new strategy is going to be less risk than what didn't work. Meanwhile, Imi, tell us about this camping in the forest. And Patrick, every time we carry a hot cup of tea or coffee whilst using our computers, we run a huge risk. So Paul and Imi.
Let me start with the farm. One of the risks that we did not foresee or did not even consider was how much mandate we had in terms of managing the affairs of the farm. We trust the manager then with a view that he had a very good understanding of the business. He had a good understanding of agriculture probably, but not of how to run a business. So we failed to see the risk we're getting into when we got into that kind of an engagement. So that's the risk we took and missed.
Thank you, Paul. Mimi said Imi wanted to share something.
Imi was telling us about camping in the forest because we wanted to have fun.
I hope we are not at risk of animals, but I think this risk management module that we are looking at comes in handy even as we look at the new mode of the farm to make it a sustainable income for Crane as a network. So risks are everywhere in our work, in our homes, on the road. So it's important to know of ways to manage them, hence risk management. And in a layman's language, without putting the complicated terms, what do we think risk management is? We have looked at the different risks, then the outcomes of some of them. And in order for us to manage them, we need to look at the definition of risk management. What is risk management in just layman's understanding?
May I try and answer the question?
Yes, Paul.
I think it is being able to look ahead and project to tell what kind of dangers lie before you, what is likely to have a negative impact on the work that you're doing, and then determining how to mitigate, how to reduce that risk or to eliminate that risk, and by taking certain actions. I think that's what we would call risk management.
I think that is a simple way and it's clear to everyone what risk management is. And this is something we deal with on a daily basis, even when we are doing our own work on the desks, as we move out of our homes and come to work and go back. This is something we handle on a daily basis. So we'll look at the definition of risk management. Risk management is the practice or process of identifying potential risks and problems in advance, analyzing them and taking precautionary steps to curb or reduce the impact of unfortunate events while maximizing the realization of opportunities. And like Paul has said in simple terms, it is trying to look into the future and seeing a problem that might arise by doing something and then looking at mitigation measures of how to eliminate it or handle it if it comes. So the goal of risk management is to minimize the effect of potential risks to the workers, to the project, and the organization as a whole. We will look at the different steps that we go through as we manage the risk. There are 5, and we'll begin with the risk identification. I know you're all looking at the screen, but if we could just give our thoughts on what we think risk identification is, that would be very helpful. What is risk identification?
Thanks, Derek. Says identifying the risk, being able to say this is the risk I anticipate. Looking at various kinds of risks that you anticipate are about to happen.
All right, thank you, Paul. Yes, ma'am.
Uncle Paul said what I was going to say, but I was just struggling to find any other word for identification. So risk identification is identifying a risk. I wonder how I might say that otherwise. Seeing a problem?
Yes.
I would say it would be using the knowledge you already have of what might happen or what has already happened in similar circumstances to sort of know what might be coming up.
Thank you, Becca. Okay, we'll look at risk identification as the first step in risk management, and risk identification is to recognize, uncover, and describe risks that might affect individuals, the project, organization, and its outcomes. The first step is to identify the risks that organizations, churches, or schools are exposed to in its operating environment. I gave two of the examples, for instance, construction site, swimming pool, but other examples under risk identification could be transportation of children. Every day the buses move out to take children to school, and it exposes them to different risks, maybe accidents on the road or any other thing that could happen to a child, maybe as they are crossing from their home to the bus. That is also a risk. People who run schools have a lot of risks. Children may be missing out of school, children falling sick from school. Those are the very many risks as the schools operate. But we also, under churches, how do we operate our children's churches? Most of the parents bring the children and take them to the Sunday school or the children's churches, and they leave them there to the care of the teachers. No one is attending to them. The parents are enjoying the big church and they don't know what is happening in these Sunday schools. So those are some of the risks that we could identify in the different operating environments. And ways to identify risks include, but are not limited to, conducting internal research. Then we can consult an expert. Of late, I think there are organizations that have risk management specialists, so we can consult one. Then we can seek employee feedback, just passing on maybe a questionnaire, and you ask them different questions of what they think some risks are in their work, would be helpful in giving that feedback for better planning. And also regularly analyze customer complaints. As looking at the network members, sometimes they give feedback maybe in the AGM or in some of the trainings that we meet, and we just put it as an evaluation. But on deeper analysis, probably it could be also one way of identifying risk. So we can consider views from network members, but also the training evaluation. We just don't gather the information and we leave it at that. Then the second step is risk analysis. This stage looks at the type of risk and the sources of risk. What type of risk is it? Where is the source of that risk? And what are the current controls in place to manage this risk? So once risks are identified, you determine the likelihood and consequences of each risk and to who. Is it to children? Is it to the whole organization and its members? Is it to only adults? Who is the risk exposed to? You develop an understanding of the nature of the risk and its potential to affect individuals, projects, organizational goals, and objectives. At stage 3, we have risk evaluation. We evaluate or rank the risk by determining the risk magnitude, and this is the severity of the impact of the risk. What are the likelihood or the chances of this risk occurring again? There are some things that happen once, they happen twice, and like history keeps repeating itself, and there is no step that is taken to control the risk or to eliminate the risk. And just thinking through some of the headlines that go through our news, we have some places that we have known for a long time that are a danger to people in the community. and there's nothing that has been done to take away the people from that risky area or to eliminate the risk. So after you have evaluated the risk, you make decisions about whether the risk is acceptable or whether it is serious enough to warrant treatment. So depending on how you've evaluated the risk, then we can go to the risk treatment, which is at the fourth step. And this is basically it is a response plan to the risk that you have evaluated. During this step, you assess your highest ranked risks and set out a plan to treat or modify these risks to achieve acceptable risk levels. It is possible to minimize the negative risks as well as enhance opportunities by creating risk mitigation strategies and plans and preventive plans. And usually at this step, most of the organizations or companies or institutions propose a person who is responsible to handle this risk. If it is a response plan, you expect someone to be in position to handle. And somewhere we said that it is everyone's responsibility, but usually when you say it is everyone's responsibility, everyone will assume the other person will do it. So it is important that we get a person who is specifically responsible to work at the risk that has been identified. And lastly, we have the monitoring and reviewing the risk as the last step. And this is the step where you make use of your risk register to monitor, track, review risks, and update if necessary. And I believe we have a risk register at Crane. Do we have?
We do. It's a very big, complex one.
Yes, Humphrey. Yes, Humphrey, I can hear you. And I don't know who is in charge of it. Humphrey, who could be in charge of our risk register?
It is Vanessa. So
okay.
each project manager is supposed to collect from the activities and their report, and then Vanessa is meant to update Crane general one, while the project managers do each for their project. But I think
I think Mim has raised.
You're doing such a good job, Gladys, that I think you're about to volunteer to work with Vanessa.
I think, Mim, you've raised a very important statement that each manager looks at the risks that are involved in their activities, in their programs, and then they report or record in the risk register so that action is taken up. I do not mind volunteering to work with Vanessa on the risk register. Okay, as a project manager, we have a responsibility of managing risks on a daily basis, either knowingly or unknowingly. Even when you're talking to someone, there are some risks you identify and you advise, or you try to make sure that action is taken. I was talking to my manager about that one of the churches I visited, and basically it is in a swamp. And with the recent rains, when that side Munyonyo was flooded, the church was affected. Right now, they do not have any solution because they had invested all the money in constructing in constructing that church. And previously, were telling them that they need to put up a children's church because the children's church was in iron sheets. So after they had put up the children's church as a permanent structure, then the floods came in and the whole church and the children's church are submerged in water. And this is something that we had talked about. We did not record on our side, but we informed their management. So in one way, we're trying to manage the risk, but probably on their side, we are not able to do something about it in time. But discussions are still going on to see what can be done. So if we learn to apply the systematic risk management process and put into action the 5 risk management processes or steps that we have looked at, then our projects will run more smoothly and be a positive experience for everyone involved. And missing this means the project could run into obstacles that we are not prepared to handle, and this could slow down or even stop completely. And I think a good and live example to us is the farm that the risks were not managed well, or some things were not seen, and this has slowed down what was expected out of it, or actually the farm completely stopped and we're looking at a new idea altogether. So like we said, all organizations should have a risk register and an individual with the overall responsibility to record incidences for notification and action. And I pray that, or I hope that in one of our meetings, we will communicate this, that every staff will know Vanessa is in charge of the risk register. However, the senior management also has a responsibility of checking on the risk register. And it even goes further to the board to review the high levels risk regularly so that they are able to take action. When we are looking at the risk management, we have the mitigation measures, and I want each one of us at least to write in the chat or contribute something on the mitigation measures or categories of risk management. We have avoidance, we have reduction, retention, and sharing the risk. You could give an example of what it is to what you can do at avoidance measure or reduction, retention, or sharing the risk, or what you feel I could have left out on the definitions of these mitigation measures. So Mim will help us with whatever is written in the chat, either as an example of avoidance or as an added contribution to the description.
While people are typing, let me say the only thing that I'm very clear about is that sharing the risk
Yes.
often involves when you buy insurance. So whether it's for a car, a house, medical insurance, whatever type of insurance you're buying, even you can insure the cash that you carry. It's not that you can do that. So I do know that insurance is something that would be identified as a way to share the risk.
Yes, thank you, Mim. And sharing the risk comes in when you know this is something that is beyond your capacity to handle, and therefore you decide to seek alternatives of managing it. And like you've said, the vehicle insurance, you cannot say I will drive, I'm an expert on the road, so I'll never get any road accident. So it would be on a safe side to insure the vehicle against any form of accident. Yes, any other examples? I was just sharing with Imi this morning about the landslide of Bududa. Which level do we think that landslide is? We all know about the Bududa landslides. Members, do we all know about the landslide of Bududa?
Yes, we do.
No.
Yes, what level do we think it is? Because I think it is something that has occurred every year, in and out, and somehow people have to lose property, some die, but still nothing is being done about it. What level do we think it is?
I think it's avoidance.
It's a high.
Yes, Paul. Let's hear from Paul, then we can hear from Humphrey.
It's a saying that I think it's avoidance. And people have just, lived in denial and decided to
Yes.
stay. They don't realize that, it's going to happen. It's just about to happen. The land is going to slide anyway.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Humphrey.
I think I concur with Paul, because I know many occasions the government have tried to help people to relocate, then others have ended up coming back to the same place. And so somehow they have ignored it and assumed as if it doesn't affect them, and they end up dying. So it's like they have avoided nothing is going to happen, but yes, it does happen. And
So
I think the best way I could say it is it's a high risk. That's what they call a high risk area.
Yes.
And so risk, it should have been avoided completely by taking people away. And people should have accepted to vacate that place completely. So the government have tried to avoid, but the people have kind of done the opposite.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, Mim.
Because actually the solution for landslides is to plant vegetation on the hill.
Yes.
And the reason they've happened is because people have stripped the land. So sometimes the best solutions, we're not prepared to take them, which is interesting. Patrick has given another example here, and then maybe we go back. He's saying an example of reduction is that in campaign season, when there's a lot of chaos, we would adjust.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, we would adjust the timing of our sessions or change the location to avoid the problems. So that's an example of reduction.
Thank you, Patrick. That is a live example, because that is the season we are in. And as we wait for others to contribute, when you get to the third mitigation, at this level, an individual organization accepts the risk and budgets for it and its consequences. I think just what we did yesterday, the firefighting training was to equip us to know that fire is a risk that can happen to the office, to the vehicles, or to in our homes. So we have planned for it. That's why the organization purchased the fire extinguishers, the water pipe, and so in case of any risk, we are able to handle in our capacity, unless it is really something that is so outrageous. So the other example I was looking at was maybe the Kasese water banks bursting, and the government maybe plans for proper drainage, for channeling of that water. And also when it comes to the kind of work we do with different organizations, with the children, with the churches, it is something that we can create awareness that there are risks they can handle, but there are also those risks that they are not able to retain. And so they have to seek for alternatives rather than waiting for just help. So if we are to go on, we'll share as others come in. We'll look at examples of risks. I just mentioned a few. I know there are quite a number. We could add in the chat what we think some of the examples of risks include. And what I have is security. Some of the people we employ as security personnel are the very people that actually connive with others to disorganize the working premises. We've had so many security conniving, and they rob petrol stations, they rob schools, they rob banks. So that is part of the risk, much as we think it is something that can be helpful when we employ security people. Then slips. when you're passing somewhere, especially with tiles, you see, please walk carefully. You could easily fall. So it is very important to have those the signposts indicating that this is a risk. So you walk carefully. You can easily fall. Then for schools and organizations that have camps and take children for swimming, drowning is one of the risks that they interface with. That's why I think there are guards at every swimming pool. And then we have hazardous substances. For schools that have sick bays or even homes, it is very important to know how we dispose of or how we keep the medical things that we use, because it could be very dangerous for us to expose the children to that. Then we have manual handling or heavy lifting of dangerous machines, electrical risks, then the lawn working and the vehicle movement. Usually some people go to the field when they are alone and anything can happen on the road. Those are some of the few examples that we can look at, but others also can apply. So let's look at the measures to counteract these risks. And these include availability of a first aider and also a well-equipped first aid box. I'm glad they are working on our first aid box. Thank you very much, team. Then we have the location and contacts of the nearest emergency health facility that Humphrey has done so well. And we encourage all other organizations to do that, to have numbers and contacts of nearest emergency health facilities. Then transportation available 24/7 for emergencies. Visibility of evacuation plans within the venue. We looked at that yesterday. For some of us that did not know, now we are better. Then we are encouraged to put on our seat belts when we are driving, and also an evacuation plan should consider all people, especially those with disabilities. And as I conclude, I would like to encourage everyone that it is each one's responsibility to identify potential risks in his or her work. You communicate and consult for possible action to manage the risks at different levels. When we are healthy, safe, and our environments are secure, then the children in our care will be able to thrive, learn, and fulfill their God-given potential. Thank you very much, members, for listening in. Unless one has something to say, I would like to appreciate your participation and attendance. Thank you very much.